Hey, I'm Tom,
And I'm John.
and we're the co-founders of Handsome Frank Illustration Agency.
In this series, we'll be sitting down and talking to our illustrators, finding out more about them, their artistic process, and the creative industry we work in.
Welcome to our podcast.
Hey Tom. Well, good afternoon.
Yes, it is afternoon.
We're in Norwich today with Zoë Barker.
Hello,
Hi Zoë, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Should we get the Alan Partridge jokes out the way?
Go for it. I'm so used to it.
I think that is everyone's Norwich reference point, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
No, we arrived separately today, Tom, didn't we? And you've had a nice wander
Yeah,
around.
I decided to take the train, enjoy the scenery. Only took 3 hours.
It's embarrassing. So badly connected, unfortunately.
I was quite shocked at the price of the ticket as well.
Yeah, it's not friendly on the wallet.
Well, you were offered a lift from Cambridge.
No, I know. There's no. I think the price is about the same. And if we want to do on peak, it was £120 day return.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating. Often also the plugs don't work on the trains.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't try the plugs.
Damn
Yeah.
it. But how often... So maybe we should go back
Yeah,
a bit
let's-
here.
let's
Rather
skip the
than
train.
complain about train sockets. How long have you been in Norwich? How long have you lived here?
So we moved here, must be about 3 years ago now. Before that we were in London I was there for 15 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
But I grew up in Suffolk, so Norwich was always my closest city growing up. And I eventually convinced my husband that Norwich was the best place for us to
him.
live. Yes.
And you grew up in Beccles, right?
Beccles, yes.
I used to go camping in Beccles.
Did you?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Is it the Honey Pot campsite?
I don't know.
Or is that... I'm
It
sure...
might be out on the,
on the
outskirts. Yeah.
My parents used to make us tour Beccles, Bungay,
Amazing.
all of the jewels of Suffolk.
Oh, they are jewels.
But no, I do have very nice memories of messing around on the... Is it the River Ouse? Which is down?
That is nearby. The Waveney runs through
Waveney,
Beccles.
that's it,
Yeah.
the Waveney. Yeah, we used to go canoeing on.
I know absolutely
So
none
good.
of these places.
Sorry, that's really...
Just a little East Anglia corner over here.
Yeah, it's just a very quaint market town.
It seems very nice.
Yeah.
Should I read my little introduction about Zoë at this point?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this is from the Handsome Frank website actually. So I maybe even wrote this myself. In a quiet little studio nestled in the picturesque lanes of Norwich, you'll find Zoë Barker, an illustrator of remarkable talent. Do we agree so far? Actually,
Yeah,
correct.
I guess so.
This is quite a good way to proofread artist bios, actually. A fine art graduate from Kingston University, Zoë switched disciplines post-university and never looked back. Working predominantly with pencils and watercolour, she creates beautifully intricate images that capture reality, but the very best of reality. While she's a specialist at architecture and people, there are no limits to her range when it comes to subject matter. She just loves to draw and document things, often inspired by environments and places, and she can capture anything she's tasked with. Is this all correct?
Sounds great.
That's good. I like it.
And then we finish with a little note about the fact that you have a dog friend called Ada, who's sadly not with us today.
I feel slightly at sea without her. She's normally with me all of the time, but she's very aggressive to Crumpet, the local cat. And so if she sees him, I think the cat's a him, outside the window in her garden, she will go mad.
Poor
So where
Crumpet.
is she now?
She's in the studio with Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so your partner Johnny shares the studio with you? Or?
Yes,
Oh,
he's a
cool.
graphic designer. So we work in a little studio it was like this old basket shop back in the day, like big old beams. And yeah, Johnny works there with me and lots of other people, and Ada comes with us everywhere we go.
Everywhere you go. So you seem to have really settled here.
Yes.
Should we go back? I mean, I don't like to always do things chronologically, but I think there is quite a nice, interesting story and kind of how you ended up here and you know, that path. So Kingston, what was that like?
I liked Kingston. I think it was an interesting time because going back a year, I did my art foundation in Norfolk, and it was the best year of my life. Loved it.
Everyone says that about Art Foundation.
Oh,
It's such
what
a good year.
Yeah. And the first time, like, I liked school for like the learning, and I was a major geek at school, but socially I found it quite difficult. So the foundation is the first year when you're like with people you're like, you know,
These are my people.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely felt like that. And then everything was kind of, I decided I wanted to go to uni in London, and I wanted to either go to Chelsea or Kingston. Chelsea scared me because I'd have to live in central London, so I just applied to Kingston, and thankfully I got in, and it was a massive deal. I felt like it was like such an achievement to get in, and I got there, and I think I was just a bit like, oh, I don't think this is what I had expected at all.
Sorry,
Okay.
what was the course you were doing at uni?
So I was doing fine art.
Okay.
So all through my foundation, I'd done loads of printmaking and drawing and painting.
Because Art Foundation, for people that don't know, is basically a year where you just get to try everything.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I don't know. I did textiles, fine art, graphic design, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Like a big sort of art playground.
Yeah, exactly. And I had chosen to go to Great Yarmouth College to do my art foundation rather than Norwich Art School, because it was a tiny course, but they had really good facilities. So you could go and use the photography suite or the print room whenever you wanted to, and it was brilliant. But then when I got to Kingston, it was just like we were quite kind of disciplined in our foundation. We had to stick to quite a strict deadline, had quite a lot of briefs, and then when I got to uni we didn't really have that, so I was just kind of like, what have I done? And I was still painting a lot, loads of portraiture, which I loved, but my course was quite heavily conceptual, so I just felt like the old fart in the corner drawing old men.
So, and how quickly did this dawn on you?
Quite quickly.
And what did you do about it? Are you someone that reacts to that quickly, or are you someone that just
No,
sits it out?
am quite reactive. So I was like, okay, I need to sort this out. I don't think I can carry on in this course. So I chatted to my course leaders, chatted to the illustration course at Kingston, and they agreed. They thought that I should probably be on an illustration course. But at the time, I don't think there was space on the Kingston course or something. So they were suggesting basically drop out for a year,
come back,
go apply to do illustration. So I was like, oh no, I can't do that. So going to uni for me was a massive deal. Leaving Suffolk, I'd lifted up my life, and I'd already paid for the first, load of, and that felt like quite a financial investment at the time. So quitting wasn't really an option. So I just was like, okay, I'm just going to make the most of this, and I concentrated on drawing, and really drilled down into like being the best draftsman I could be, I guess. Loads of sketchbooking, and all of my final projects were massive pencil drawings.
So you kind of took the course where you needed it to go rather than
exactly. And kind of I eventually found that the freedom that the fine art course offered, I could take that and make it, like you said, make what I needed from it, which was brilliant, and I ended up loving it. But coming out of uni, I just no clue.
Okay. So you graduate, you get your degree, and then you. But
Sorry, when did you graduate?
2007.
Okay.
And do you mean you didn't have a clue, as in you didn't know where you fitted, or you didn't know how to make a living, or
all of the above?
Yeah.
I think I had decided I wanted to be an illustrator. But I think I was a bit blinkered by the whole process of getting the degree. I think my eyes were so firmly fixed on the degree show and making sure I got a good degree out of it. I hadn't really then planned for what was to come after university.
And on the course, was that not covered at all?
No.
Putting a portfolio together, how to promote yourself, things like that.
Nothing like that. I mean, we had one session in our final year about tax. I think that was it.
Handy.
Yeah. And that was very like setting you up for like what I took away from that was this is how to claim tax back from your part-time job because you won't make it.
Because you'll have a part-time
For
job.
artwork. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so fairly aspirational.
Yeah. So I don't know. And also I think I never felt like I belonged in the fine art scene. It was kind of all the networking and socialising. That doesn't appeal to me.
So who were the illustrators at that time you were looking at and thinking, that's what I want to do, that's the kind of work I want to do? Was there anyone in particular you were following? Or?
I was looking at people like Charles Anastase, who was doing loads of lovely very realistic pencil portraits, but kind of fashion based, and just loads of people on different various blogs.
Because it was all, it's easy to forget, but it was all about, there was no Behance, no Instagram.
No.
It was all about blogs at that point, really, and
I
don't know, the Creative Review blog was quite an interesting resource.
Yeah, I remember Billie Jean being I was a big fan of his work. Then a bit further out of uni, David Sparshot was a massive inspiration.
Hey, we know him.
Yeah. So yeah, not very prepared when I came out, but just kind of had to quickly adapt. I was still in London. I was living in Shepherd's Bush by this point, and lots of my friends were going home after uni.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to do that because I really loved London.
You feel like you've never left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that one.
Yeah, I'd always pretty much stayed in London in the holidays and stuff, just because I always had a part-time job at uni, so it just had to be that way. And so I didn't know how I was going to make a career out of art at all, so I just got a job at Monmouth Coffee.
Yeah, and so during lockdown, when I got quite into coffee,
yes,
we were exchanging messages about how to do latte art.
The perfect latte art, yes.
And it was you were very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pride myself on my coffee knowledge.
I mean, you have to be a bit of an expert if you've worked at Monmouth.
Yeah, like it's funny because the whole path of my career has not been plain sailing.
I don't think we need just for the record, there was some hand quotation marks there, air quotes.
Talking about your career, though,
I think you can call it a career now, Zoe.
Thank you. But I have really lucked out with some of the people I've worked for. They've been like family, and Monmouth being the best example of that. And even though I've always early on, I needed a part-time job to sustain my freelancing. They were jobs that I found really interesting and met people who were doing trying to do similar kind of things.
Yeah, so you took something from it.
Definitely. So working at Monmouth, I worked at a bike shop for a long time. Always things that I was really interested in. So
which were you on Charlotte Street?
I was on Monmouth Street.
Oh right, that's where
it
started. Right, the first one.
And I helped run the Borough Market stall back in the day when it was.
I'm wondering if I bought a coffee.
Were you fixing bikes?
I was doing little bits of.
Can you tune gears?
Sometimes I can, yeah.
Okay.
Depends on the bike.
It's a dark art.
Yeah, I do. It's me and Johnny always joke about this because we're both quite into cycling.
Yeah.
But when we go into bike shops, generally the people behind the counter will talk to Johnny and not me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hello.
I'm the expert.
Yeah, but it's just nice because I really throughout also kind of my career, I've found that learning new skills definitely.
I was going to say, it sounds like you've pursued, even when you weren't pursuing art as a career, you've pursued things you care about and you love and you're interested in.
Yeah, and also I think I've been drawn to the people who've set those businesses up because they're really passionate and doing exactly it's really niche what they're wanting to do, and that's really appealed to me. And I've learned loads from them about how they set up their businesses in a bid to kind of set up my own business of kinds. So
did you stop drawing at any point, or was it always bubbling along?
It was. So early on, I was drawing non-stop and working full-time. so my social life was non-existent with like early 20s. And it was also a time when not many of my friends were freelancing. I guess because I wasn't from an illustration course, I didn't know any other illustrators like peer-to-peer.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't know where to get that kind of insider knowledge.
And was it, I'm trying to think, is this before Twitter? Maybe
yes,
just
before Twitter. So I felt like I was a little bit of an island. And I'd contact people and ask lots of people for advice and stuff. And eventually I came into contact with this little design studio in Hackney. And I started doing some illustration for them. And they were just very generous and took me under their wing a bit and taught me firstly how to switch on a Mac and then like Adobe skills and stuff, which I had
Of course, so you hadn't, in fine art, you wouldn't have learnt any of that.
None.
Wow.
I think I knew how to use InDesign at a very basic level to lay out a portfolio, but that was the total.
Photoshop,
no.
Nothing. Interesting.
Yeah, so I was proper like analog.
Yeah.
So they were brilliant. I did their illustrations and I worked like 2 to 3 days a week for them, and they were teaching me graphic design and stuff as well. So I learnt loads from them too. So I did lots of little part-time jobs, and then I kind of got myself full-time freelance, and that was going really well.
And how long had that taken you from graduating?
That took me till about full-time till about 2010.
So 3 years.
Yeah, so working at Monmouth, working at the bike shop, and then working a bit at Sparks Design Agency. And then in 2011, things went slightly downhill. I had always had problems with OCD and anxiety from when I was like 7 years old, and it had kind of I'd been on top of it and not had any problems with it since I was little. And then in 2011 it just kind of took my legs from underneath me.
And was there a catalyst for that, or just out of nowhere?
Kind of out of nowhere, but I think it was I think it was just a culmination of working on my own, working a lot, so I was probably quite tired, but I just suddenly didn't want people to see my work. I just was panicking about anyone seeing anything I did.
Oh wow, okay.
Which is a little bit counter what you want when you're showing your portfolio and all that stuff. So I deleted my blog, which my blog had been the first thing I'd had, and that was how I'd kind of made my first friends who were illustrators, and back in the day when it was all Tumblr.
So you kind of removed your work from being
removed all
in the
of
world.
That. Was very close to deleting my website. That was going to be the last switch off. I was a bit like, I don't know what on earth I'm going to do, because
I think we spoke around this time.
I think we did, yeah.
And did anyone, any of your friends kind of mention it? Like, oh, where's your blog gone?
I think I kept a lid on it fairly well.
Yeah.
I think I didn't know how to vocalise what was going on at the time. I was really... I think the problem was, it was my greatest hobby, the thing I loved doing the most, that I'd invested all of my time up until that point in pursuing a career in art, and I just hit this massive wall that I didn't know how I could climb over.
Well, it's turning a hobby into a job.
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at it in a completely different way.
Yeah, and I had started having panic attacks when I went to draw, and I was just like, I don't know how on earth I'm gonna get over this. So I went back to Monmouth. I was like, can I come and work here?
I'm
again?
back.
Please.
I'm back to make the
back.
flat whites.
Yeah. And I was just like, I'm going to put that on hold. I'm probably not going to do it again. People were still contacting me for work, and I just wasn't replying.
Yeah, so I have a feeling we spoke around this time. I can't remember the context.
Yeah.
You probably don't.
I can't remember.
Either,
it was a bit of a foggy
grey area.
time.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a project, and we just thought you were perfect for it. And I think you just sent me a very short but very polite reply saying, "Well, I'm not really illustrating anymore."
Yeah, and it was it was a strange time because also, like, Monmouth is in central London, and a lot of my clients would come in and they'd just be like, what's going on, you know? Which is quite difficult in mid, like, serving other customers to be like, oh, I feel like I'm having a breakdown.
Yeah. God.
So yeah, it was a tricky time, but subsequently it was the best thing that could have possibly happened. It made me reconfigure everything so that it worked again. I didn't do any commercial illustration for a while. I started just working in my sketchbooks, doing my own projects, as I felt like I could. For a while, I couldn't do anything, and
What do you think gave you that breakthrough to kind of start again?
So, for a while, I didn't do anything. I signed up for a night course at Morley College, and I learnt pattern cutting, and was like, maybe I'll be a tailor. I was just like, anything can go now.
Yeah.
But
how liberating in a way.
Yeah,
just
really
to be
liberating.
like, let's start over.
Yeah, it didn't feel liberating at the time, but it was. And so I was fulfilling that creative itch that was always there by making clothes, and that was definitely like a form of therapy for me. Going to Morley College once a week, learning all of these really technical skills. And then gradually I really became interested in like surface design and textile design. And then that kind of came full circle back to illustration. And I was just like, I do love illustration. Like, I can't really imagine not doing this, but I just can't seem to make it work. And at that point, I got 2 emails through. One was from Matt Blees, who was then the art director at head designer at Liberty.
That's right. He's a freelance illustrator now, but
yes,
he was.
He is.
I remember talking to him at Liberty. Yeah.
And he wanted me to draw the shop for their advertising, and I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can do it, because my head was just not in the game. And then another one of just like a random project of drawing buildings, and I was like, look, okay, let's do these projects. If they go well...
Sorry, I was going to cut you off there. I was just wondering if there was much architectural stuff in your portfolio at that point.
No, this was
so this is a turning point.
Major turning point. I'd been fairly heavily portrait driven, lots of people. So yeah, this was quite a departure. But it intrigued me because it was kind of a bit different. And it was a bit of a test. It was like, if these go well, I'll keep going.
It's also just one of those really iconic buildings that
exactly.
It's a lovely opportunity.
Yeah, it was a bit like I'd be stupid to say no to this if I've got a little bit of an inkling of still wanting to be an illustrator.
Yeah, this is a good one. Isn't the front of is it Liberty's that's made out a boat?
Old boat, yes.
It's an old boat, yeah.
Yeah.
Is the structure of the building at the front.
Yeah, so nice. So it was definitely like a make or break decision. It was like, okay, if these projects go well, perfect, I'll try and make illustration work for me. If not, the website's going and that's job done. And thankfully, like, obviously Matt is a legend, so he was great to work with, and that was definitely, and like, that being in my portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, that's still in your
boost.
portfolio now, isn't it? That's still on our site.
Yeah, and I remember putting that on my Instagram, and I hadn't posted any illustration for like a good few years.
I remember going into Liberty's. I mean, it's still there today, but you can get it on a tea tray.
Yeah.
Placemats.
Yeah, I think it was
cushions.
like their best-selling tea towel for a while.
I
loved.
I remember going. Whenever I meet up with my mum in London, you have to go to Liberty.
Do,
Yeah. It's definitely a mum place.
So yeah. Hi, mum. But yeah, we were wandering around there, and I was like, oh, that's Zoe's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice illustration.
Yeah, and I think that too, like seeing your drawings in print on objects in such an iconic shop.
But also, you talked a lot about your loss of confidence.
Yeah.
Surely a massive, like, pat on the back, confidence boost to see people not only appreciating your work, but buying it and wanting it, and there being people that love your work. That must have been a huge turning point. Yeah,
definitely. But I think the trouble was my fear was mainly in people seeing my work. So even that level of exposure felt a bit like,
Okay,
ooh.
so that in a way was quite triggering, I guess.
Because of the criticism that it may attract?
Kind of, yeah. Or just I think generally I'm quite a private person. I don't have a Facebook and I don't have a personal Instagram or anything like that. I just
Your dog has an Instagram.
Of course my dog does. She has the
different.
most exciting social life in the house. But so I think it feels a lot to suddenly have quite I don't feel the same now, but at the time I felt like my drawing was quite personal, even though it's commissioned by someone external.
I see this a lot. Quite often when you meet with a grad or you do a portfolio review with somebody, and they start showing, people tend to front load their portfolio. They put the stuff that they're happiest with or the newest stuff at the front.
Yeah.
And then you get like 6 or 8, 10 pages in, and they start apologising for things and saying, that shouldn't really be in there anymore, and I don't like this one.
That chronological journey that they've taken with their work.
Yeah, and I guess advice for aspiring illustrators, but if there's anything in your portfolio that you're not really proud of and really confident of and want to show, take it out, because that's not really helping you if you're apologising for your own work.
Totally. And
I can see how you get there.
Yeah, and I think it's a numbers thing too, isn't it? You think the more
Yeah.
stuff you have, you look like you're getting way more work and you're a bit more established.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think quantity over quality every
Yeah.
time. You know, obviously there's a minimum quantity you need, really, but I'd much rather see a tight, coherent body of work
Yeah.
than, you know, a big portfolio where the consistency's up and down.
Yeah, definitely. But again, I think that comes with confidence, doesn't it? So yeah, the Liberty stuff definitely helped me to be like, okay, I'm gonna
do this now. You can do this.
Do this.
And what year was this then?
This was like 2 years later.
Okay, so it was
like
a good
2013.
couple of years out.
Yeah. And I think it was great though. Like I spent time doing other stuff, and just looking after myself because my mental health was just not in a good spot. And it definitely taught me, like, this is what happens when you don't look after your mental health. You know, like I think freelancing and working on your own is not suited to everybody.
It's a bad combination if you're already susceptible.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what you do now to try and avoid finding yourself in that situation again. What have you changed? Yeah.
So I feel like I have to do a lot, but they're things I really love. We've moved. One of the reasons we moved to Norwich was so that we could have a better studio set up. Because when we were in London, I was in and out of studios because it was like, it's expensive to have a studio, so it's the extra pressure, and then often you'd be travelling to your studio.
And you feel guilty if you're not using it.
Yeah, exactly. I had one studio that I really loved, and then other ones kind of, if you don't get quite the right vibe, or I don't know, it's a delicate
I think in the
balance.
last sort of 10, maybe even 15 years in London, like back then there was all these nice, affordable, cool studios, and then everyone suddenly realised they could make a lot of money out of these people.
Totally.
And they've all kind of disappeared, really.
Yeah. So I felt guilty about having a studio when we had like a spare room. So we both ended up working at home because Johnny, my partner's also freelance. But when you're working to deadlines and you're working a lot, then you just don't end up leaving your house that much, do you? So, so the first thing we did was we got our dog, and that was a massive boost, just because it meant
you have to go for a walk.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I love having a dog. We fight over who walks the dog because everyone wants to walk.
I love it. And everyone talks to you when you have a dog, which is great. And we left London, and now we have a studio that's only like a 15-minute walk away. So it's really easy to get to whenever you need to, but also so much cheaper than anything I ever had in London. And just that walk into town with our dog, we see so many people we know, and we haven't even lived here that long.
Yeah, and that separation between work and
yeah, that's the thing.
home.
I don't really like having anything work related at home. It's all at the studio, and I don't I really love my own space. but I need the little interactions, even if it's just at the coffee shop in the morning with the regulars. That'll tide me over, and then
sustain you.
Yeah, and then like our studio is all open plan, and there's loads of different people in there, from like dressmakers to architects. So we all get on really well, and if you want to have a chat, you can, but if you want to just do your work.
And you're a keen runner as well, aren't you?
Yes, that's definitely been, that's the best thing, hands down, for my mental health.
And you like trail running?
I love trail running.
Nice.
I loved lockdown just for
I love pandemics.
Me and Johnny both felt quite guilty, because at the time we were staying with my parents in Suffolk, and you're literally like a 5-minute cycle and you're in the middle of beautiful countryside. So we'd be out on our bikes, and I'd just do like a half marathon at the weekend, and it was
nice.
It was
Casual
just
half marathon.
Brilliant. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I have to say I follow it on Strava, Zoe. It's both motivational and disappointing to see how much quicker and faster you run them.
We do comment. I think I did a coastal run at the weekend,
Yes.
and you were like, "Oh, that looks good."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, nice
yeah.
hilly path.
Yeah, so good. I prefer the trail runs just because they're a bit. Obviously, sometimes it can get a bit boring when you're just running on roads.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a road runner. Then Tom.
Depending on the
Yeah,
routes.
well, so I went down to the coast at the weekend, and I was like, you can just see the cliff and the coastal path. So, and Verity, my partner, she was like, well, you could just run on the flat promenade. Surely that's more enjoyable. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to go and run up that hill. Far more enjoyable.
Totally. Just a variation in the. Yeah, it kind of keeps you. It splits it all up a bit, doesn't it?
I just think it because you're constantly looking where your feet are going to go.
Yeah.
It keeps your mind engaged, and you don't get bored.
Totally.
And then you don't just think, "Oh, my legs hurt," or "My lungs hurt," or "Everything hurts."
Yeah, and coming back just caked in mud is just quite satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I need to embrace the trails, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have to kind of say goodbye to your faster times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a numbers guy with running.
No, it's pathetic, isn't it?
It's all right.
It's easily done though. Totally been there. But yeah, running, hands down the best thing. Any kind of exercise really, but running, and again, a massive benefit of leaving London, just the running routes.
But did you run at all when you were? Sorry, I don't want to turn this into the Run as Well podcast or anything.
No.
But how old were you when you started running?
So when all growing up, I was super sporty. I was
okay.
every sports team.
So like cross country at school, totally fine.
Yeah, happily do that. Big into hockey and netball and everything, and athletics was a big one. And then played netball in London in a league for a bit, but always kind of maintained my running, and then. But didn't really kind of push it a bit more until just before we left London.
Yeah.
And then when we moved here, I joined a running club and kind of really got stuck in. And I think it's actually the same.
Oh, so you're part of a club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same one that David Sparshot was in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another.
But
I spied him on
could
Strava.
you keep up with David?
As if.
David is ridiculously quick.
Yeah, madness.
Like, I think he's done a 5K, and what was it, like?
Well, I just don't talk to David about his running.
It was something insane, like, I don't know, 18 minutes or something.
Madness. But yeah, just the opportunity to be outside. I think that's the key thing with both the running and the cycling.
Yeah.
Just getting that headspace.
And you're really into your music as well. Spotted record player coming in.
Yes.
Is listening to music, and is that a big part of your work day, or is that something you do outside of work? Or?
It is. It kind of changes a bit, to be honest. Often I'll listen to podcasts or audiobooks a lot when I work. Just especially if it's like a longer deadline, I'll just get lost in a book or something. That I find that quite relaxing. But yeah, I love music, and often I'll listen to certain things that give me a certain kind of boost in different times of a deadline.
I'm just rattling around in my bag, which is probably quite noisy. But I did bring you a present today.
Oh, I think...
It's a Hans and Frank slip mat.
Hey!
Oh,
did you
thank
know what
so
it was going to
much.
be?
No, but I'm so happy. I had sent John a sneaky message a while ago.
Yeah, and I didn't know where they were, and then this morning I was like, I wonder if they're in that drawer.
Have you got any more?
I've got a couple more, but there are a couple of people in our books who are really into their vinyl, so
I think we need to order some more of them.
I've earmarked a few of them.
I'm so happy.
Nice. We've been discussing Handsome Frank merch a little bit.
Amazing.
And like what to get, and it's the more niche things like this, slip mats, things like that. My 11-year-old daughter suggested tracksuits.
I'm all in.
I'm in too.
Run
Brilliant.
DMC, Adidas, Handsome Frank crossover.
I mean, I just the Christmas meal it would elevate it to another level.
We'd be like Team Zizou.
Yes,
Be
maybe
great.
that's what we should aspire to. Maybe we'd need outfits.
Yeah,
That's the next step. I wanted to ask you about your Domestica video because
Yes.
you're famous now, right? You've been filming.
Oh,
How was that?
It was brilliant. I was terrified.
I was going to say, well, I mean, as someone who's shy or surely that's kind of throwing yourself right in the limelight.
Yeah. So I think I have a bit of a split personality maybe in that I am quite shy, and I like to keep myself to myself in many ways. But I think it's with the running and the sports side. I like a challenge.
So to explain, Domestica, for anyone who doesn't know, do online video tutorials where you pay and you follow a tutorial. It could be in anything, and your video is about how to draw, essentially documentation, or
it's basically about using sketchbooks and drawing specifically with colouring pencils.
Yeah.
And they approached me initially, and I was like, I don't think I even replied. I was like, oh no, I don't want to be in front of a camera.
Because they've been doing a lot of videos recently.
Yeah, I think
they put a lot of energy into their productions. And...
Yeah, I think they've been wanting to get more English-speaking creatives specifically as well, because I think it can be hard to follow and do stuff if you're reading subtitles. So
yeah, so I think 2 or 3 Handsome Frank artists have done them recently.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't think I could do that. And then I'd seen a few illustrators I liked doing it, and I was like, oh, and I'd messaged them. I was like, how did you find this? And it was a really great process. Really interesting because you kind of explain your processes and how you've become an illustrator, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of it's quite helpful to look back. And
I sometimes find, so when I write a talk, you think of things differently. When someone asks you to go back and think about how you got to where you are, you kind of go back and see things slightly differently. It's quite a helpful experience for yourself as well as for other people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? And it's so much easier to see yourself growing when you thought you were like crashing and burning. But yeah, really helpful process, especially like process wise, and seeing your style develop and things like that, which I think I was hung up on a lot for a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, it also kind of tied into mental health stuff with like working in a sketchbook and trying to like have a creative outlet and all those kind of things. But it turned out to be a really fun.
The trailer looked great. I've not seen the course, but yeah. So you took a week to film it. And you work with the producers for a few months before, just doing various like blocks of work to prepare. But brilliant team, like so respectful for your kind of creative voice. Yeah.
And making sure you're happy with how you're coming across and all those kind of things. And it's been really amazing. I thought I wasn't even going to look at the course. I didn't really.
Have you taken your own course?
No.
I think it's nice to hear that they've kind of, they've had that dialogue with you, and then that's influenced the video.
Yeah.
That seems like a really sensible way of doing it.
Yeah, and they design your set around what you like and the colour palettes of your work, and like it's really sensitively done. And yeah, I didn't think I was dreading it coming out. I was like, oh no, this could be really bad. And it was just great because so many people have been doing the course and contacting me.
Oh, that's really nice. So you've got fans now.
Throughout the world, or
it's mad.
Really nice.
And just people being like, oh, I just did this in my sketchbook, like send me a little picture on Instagram.
Oh, that's really good.
And it's just so nice.
We haven't talked about process at all.
No.
Can you explain your process to us?
Which has changed a bit.
It has changed a bit. So
Just open some,
That sounded good.
just open
Can
some
we
fizzy water.
can we also take this pause? Could I have another top up on the wine?
of
Yeah.
course, I'll pop it.
Just going to pour
Does anyone
some.
want any probably don't want to be.
We've got,
slushing
we're sport today. We've got donuts. We've got
Thank you.
organic wine.
I think we shouldn't edit this out. I like this. We're just having a natural pause for.
This is a regular.
You
Thursday.
describe them as fancy donuts.
They are.
Which I would agree.
They are. I'm going to open them up. One of them, this one is our favourite. It's vanilla custard.
They look amazing. People get very upset if you eat on podcasts, though.
Yeah, I'll just open them up as the.
And then we'll
just stare at
partake.
them.
Yeah, we'll just stare at them hungrily
Yeah.
until the end of the pod. They do look very good.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, your process.
Process. Sorry, I got
That's okay.
distracted by the donuts. So currently working a lot in colouring pencil, sometimes also watercolour and pen. I think, well, when I first was illustrating commercially, I was doing lots of pen work, and it was all very black and white, very almost like Victorian clip art, almost like really heavy black pen work.
Some etching kind of
Yeah,
style.
that kind of thing. And I was quite scared of colour. I think the Liberty work was one of my first watercolour illustrations.
But even that's got quite...
It's a predominantly black and white building, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I still quite like to get a lot of detail in with my pen work, and then the colour comes afterwards. But yeah, I had a bit of a departure or a bit of a switch up in style from... I was doing lots of watercolour and I just wasn't really enjoying it that much. Something about the process wasn't... and I was working in a way that it was heavily digital, because I was doing everything analog.
Yeah.
But scanning it in and
scanning
layering it.
Yeah,
so
sure. So you lose that. Although it's by hand, you lose that sort of feeling of creating by hand.
Yeah, and also there wasn't like the working into a surface and achieving the kind of final finish that you wanted. It was all like on Photoshop, and it definitely didn't fulfill what I was wanting from it. So I think my style changed a fair bit while I was doing a column for The Telegraph, which I did for just over 2 years, I think, every week. And that was great because it was a quick, snappy...
Yeah, regular
deadline.
columns are so good for that, because you have finite time, but you're working with an art director for over a long period of time, so you really get to know them and what they like.
Yeah.
You kind of get in a groove.
Exactly.
And then you can, you can kind of get into a headspace where you can just kind of smash them out, which is what you need to do with that kind of project.
Exactly. And like the first few illustrations I did for them, I would take ages over each one.
And that doesn't work financially, because
it doesn't. No.
Editorial budgets aren't great. You need to be quick, otherwise it doesn't work for anyone.
Yeah. So that was a real learning curve. But I'd started working in colouring pencil in my sketchbook and was really enjoying it. But it felt like quite a departure from my normal work. But then a brief came up one week, and it was to show like honey gin. And I was like, oh, I think this could be an opportunity to crack out the colouring
Get the pencils out.
And they trusted me, and it went really well. And I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this process.
Yeah.
Something about the tactility of it all really ticked that kind of creative box. And it took me a while to get a handle on the material, because it wasn't... I was working just in colouring pencil at that point, so I still wasn't using the pen at the same time. This sounds very intricate of an explanation, but I didn't really know how to bring my pen work together with my colouring work. So over time, I then was in and out of the colouring pencils. But then when we moved to Norwich, I had a bit more downtime, so I was really trying to work out how I could bring the two together. And I approached Old Town, who are a clothing company in Norfolk that I'd always loved, to see if I could draw their...
This is the building on the corner. Is that right?
Yeah. And so I went to photograph the building, and then I went in and had a chat with them, and this lovely couple who make all of the clothes, all workwear basically. And because it wasn't like a proper deadline, I was like, I'll just have a play. And that was the first time I used pen and colouring pencil together to create like a building illustration. And I really, like, it did something that I really enjoyed.
And so you're doing all the line work and then colouring on top of that?
Yeah. And I normally scan in the line work first and then kind of make a sandwich.
Yeah.
So that it's nice and...
So we're all looking at a print on your wall, which obviously doesn't come across in the podcast, but this is Monmouth Coffee.
Yes.
Drawn in that style.
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
And I popped in Ada and Johnny and my good friend Hannah, who used to work with me at Monmouth on the right.
I've been in the studio upstairs as well. There was an artist that used to have the studio upstairs.
Oh,
I can't remember
really?
their name. Yeah, I had to actually, when I worked as a photographer, I went to photograph them, and I had a random photograph of her standing on a desk.
Oh, no. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful old building.
But this is the style, and this is the style now that you're predominantly working in, right?
Yeah.
So,
and also a massive... It's interesting looking throughout my work because this kind of pulls together everything in that I really enjoy drawing quite intricate, detailed buildings, but I like bringing in the texture of the colouring pencil, but it's also got the human element.
So we were talking on the way here, and I think what it is technically your drawings are very precise, but then there's something about the texture of a colouring pencil which is quite naive, and because kids use colouring pencils, right? And it's got a very satisfying texture.
Yes.
So that when you bring the two together, it creates something quite fun yet technically accurate. I think that's in essence what you've hit upon.
I think that's right, actually. Like, the colouring pencils bring something that because you can't control them in the same way that you can like a normal pencil. They're too soft. But it kind of stops me from being too perfect with them. I think that's what I didn't like when I was just working in watercolour. It was almost too real.
So you lose the charm almost.
Yeah.
How do you handle amends in this process?
So I've learned that to work very traditionally and in this way, you have to have pretty good Photoshop skills.
Which you didn't learn on your fine art
Which
course.
I did not learn. And also, it's just, I had somebody actually from the local art school message me about this recently, because they work in a really traditional like drawing way, and they're like, can you make this work commercially? I was like, you can totally make that work commercially, but you just need to know your Adobe software.
But also, could you kind of, let's say they, I don't know, for example, with the Monmouth one, where they were like, oh, we don't need that person there anymore.
Yeah.
Would you effectively just redraw that section?
Yeah, exactly. And on most of my drawings, I draw the people separately if they're less in the scene. And yeah, like just using a light box to redraw different elements.
So we can't talk about who the client is.
Top secret.
No.
Top secret stuff. But actually, by the time this podcast comes out, it might be out. But we've just worked on a huge project with you, which I think is one of the biggest projects we've ever done, and possibly your biggest project.
Oh, hands down.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess what we can say is it's architectural drawings in this style.
Yeah.
And it looks brilliant.
And it looks amazing, and everyone's going to see it because it's going to be very prominent on our website. But yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because it was a very intense period. You had 3 weeks to draw these architectural drawings, and it was just amazing seeing the pace that you could work at, but also the way you handled changes and feedback. And I would say this was one of the most. There was a lot of feedback. There's a lot of back and forth on this. So yeah, it was great to go through that with you, and like you say, see that you have this style which is very hand rendered, but there is that freedom to be able to edit and change and adapt and take feedback, which is so important.
Yeah, and I think knowing that you work in a style that's a little bit more locked than like more vector based illustration, that it takes a bit longer to amend. I think then your communication with the client and my brain just went then.
That's fine.
Communication with the client. Oh, and how many roughs you do.
Yes.
Like ironing out as much information as you can early on.
But I think what you're very good at as well is you manage the expectations of the client by telling them what to expect.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in the fact that a really key part of being a good illustrator is being able to explain your process in a way that clients understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's... I've gradually learned how to do that, in that I've had some probably awful experiences with when projects haven't gone well, and it's always been better when you've...
I think there's those things you have to learn the hard way as well.
Yeah, exactly. And even that whole thing of knowing how you can amend something, you have to go in kind of expecting to amend.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, the bigger the project, the more voices there are in the process, the more money is involved, and the more changes there are going to be because there are more opinions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also the easier that you can chat openly to the client and gauge what they're actually wanting, the easier it is to do your job.
Yeah. And was you were kind of the colouring on that project was it more saturated than you normally do?
Yeah. That's always been a bit of a thing, I think, with my colours not always being that poppy. And this definitely needed to be bold.
But it's partly, again, the medium. Like, pencils don't pop. I mean, even a kid was like, why does this look dull compared to a felt tip? You know?
But I mean, advertising they like big, bright colours.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. But with that, again, it kind of came down to knowing the material as well as I could and what I could do on a very basic level when I was applying the colour to the page, but also knowing the software well enough to know what I could push.
Yeah.
And it not look awful too much, because I think I did send one round through, and looking back on it, I was like, oh, that's way too saturated.
It's trial and error, isn't it?
But do you think you'll kind of continue that? Has it kind of taught you something? I ask because I think on some projects where you get that art director and they almost kind of help push the illustrator in a slightly different direction, which is a really good thing.
I definitely think I've learnt loads from this last project, and colouring probably a lot of it, to be honest, because I'm also quite used to seeing my work in fairly muted tones. You get more comfortable with that, don't you? So I think it's been really nice to see the finished artwork and be like, oh,
yeah, I really can
that
sharing them.
doesn't look that much like, I don't know. So very excited to see that come out. And also I kind of scaled down a fair bit for that project because there was so much to do for a shorter period of time, which is quite nice to know you've got that option.
Well, it depends. What I think a big consideration is what is the end use, and with something like this that's been created for predominantly online use, you don't have to draw it quite as big.
The other piece of work I saw of yours recently was the was it a magazine cover?
The Monoprix.
Oh yeah.
So that they'd taken the illustration and put it on a sort of yellowy background.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like that just gives the work such a new look.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the quality that brings too. Like they did that in the book I worked on. Everything was on like a cream colour.
This is the food book.
Yeah.
This is the book that Nigella Lawson officially approves.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Mad.
So was it a tweet?
She shared on her Instagram.
Wow.
And was like, oh, I'm loving this book at the moment. And we were all just like, what?
That's brilliant.
And then I just messaged being like, oh, thanks for sharing the book. And then she replied in a total Nigella way, like, no, thank you.
Oh,
it was so
you
nice.
can just imagine her saying
exactly.
that.
I was like,
I'm just flicking through the book now. I mean, there are hundreds
That was.
Do you know how many are in here?
It's over 1,000.
Over 1,000
Yeah.
illustrations. It's called Feast Your Eyes on Food.
And that's what I was doing in lockdown.
And have you got any idea of how many hours that took?
Oh, so many. At the end of it, I was like, don't ask me to draw a piece of food again.
And what's your
We've done
reference
it.
with something like that? Do you have the food in front of you ever, or is it always photographic reference?
So a lot of that, some of it I was a bit tied with, but the later stages when we weren't in lockdown, I got all of the ingredients from Norwich Market.
Oh wow!
And it was so nice when I'd finished it because I went and gave the man on the market a copy.
Oh, brilliant.
And he was really loving it, which was really nice. But yeah, as much as I can, I'll get the ingredients in front of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Helps with the lighting as well, doesn't it?
Definitely. But we found out that it's been nominated for the
I saw, yeah.
the Fortnum's Food Book of the Year.
So go vote for it. It's an online voting thing.
No,
right?
it's
no?
not.
Oh, is it not? Can we not influence this?
No.
Oh,
Damn it. So there's 4 books. So I'm going to a award ceremony at Fortnum and
Amazing.
Mason's.
Fortnum and Mason?
Yeah.
Oh.
That would be nice.
Yeah. I am obsessed with food TV. So those like Angela Hartnett's judging.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'll just be totally starstruck. Yeah. Sat in a corner.
Well, look, that has been such a lovely chat. I have one question left before you go, actually.
Yes.
Before we go and eat these donuts. Have you seen the film Firequake?
No.
Do you know why I'm asking you this?
No.
Because every time I Google Zoë Barker, I get Zoë Barker, the actress, by mistake. And I was looking, and I did it again this morning. So I then thought, well, I'll look at her IMDb page, and yeah, she's in a film called Firequake. Just wondered if you've seen it.
I haven't. One to watch, eh?
Maybe one.
That
to
is
watch.
a niche and random question.
Do you ever Google illustrators and find the wrong person?
There's one of our guys is a footballer.
There is.
I think that's David Sparshot.
And there's Matt Murphy is also a bass player, whose profile I sometimes find by mistake.
I have also a random and niche question.
Yes.
So I just walked through Norwich to get to your house from the station.
Yes.
There seems to be one street with all of the bars and nightclubs.
Oh.
So
yes.
I was wondering if you've ever been to Mojo's, Pure Gold, Truth with a backward R, Sherbet Lemon, Cans cocktails, or Karaoke.
No.
I thought this would be
Isn't
the
that
real
awful?
reason you moved to Norwich.
Yeah, it's Prince of Wales Road.
Okay.
And it's nightclub centric. And like when I was a teenager, that was like the biggest night out.
Is it?
Going up
So
to Norwich.
on Channel 5 there used to be a programme about basically streets where there's all the fights at kick-out time.
Yeah.
Were they ever filmed in Norwich?
They weren't, but you could totally imagine it.
That
like,
street must be horrendous
Yeah.
at kick-out time.
It's not. I've got also it backs onto like the most beautiful where the cathedral is, and all like the cathedral close, and it's all very very posh houses.
I bet
And
they love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just such a culture clash, but
So are we all off down the Prince of Wales Road now?
absolutely. After karaoke, was it?
Well, I did actually wonder on that one whether a bit of the sign had fallen off and it was karaoke and it's now
Yeah,
karaoke.
maybe. I have no idea.
Anyway, we both asked a nice random question to tail off the podcast with.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us in your lovely house. And yeah, let's go get some lunch.
Lovely. Thank you.
And if you'd like to know more about Handsome Frank and our artists, check out our website, handsomefrank.com.
Thanks very much for listening.
Handsome Frank. Handsome Frank.